Hello and welcome to the Joint Commonwealth podcast. I'm your host, Robert Van Patten, and I'm joined here by the founder and CEO of the Joint Commonwealth Fund, Shun Yuan.
Hi everyone, I'm Shun Yuan.
So, for this episode, we're going to be taking a deep dive into the wealth gap and inequality, what they are, and what, if anything, should be done about them. We're going to start things out with two charts that really say much more than Shun Yuan and I ever could about this subject. And if you're listening to this podcast and not watching on our YouTube channel, we will post a link to the chart in the description, and you can also look it up if you're curious. Just Google average U.S. household income and change in share of income 1979 to 2007, which is from the Congressional Budget Office. And it should be the top search result, or in the top 10 at least. For those who are just listening at home or in the car, there are two charts. The chart on the left is the average household income before taxes, broken down into 20% brackets, starting with the bottom 20% and so on up to the top 20%. There's also a line for the top 1%. All of the brackets are essentially flat lines near the bottom of the chart, and then the line for the top 1% looks like they got free tickets to Elon Musk's first manned mission to Mars, just way up to the right. And okay, you know what? That's fine. I want people to do well, and I'm not interested in stifling innovation. And people who create massive value for the world should be rewarded in proportion to that value creation. However, when you take a look at the chart on the right, things get pretty ugly. The chart on the right is the change in the share of household income after taxes, where you see again the top 1% going straight to the moon, and the bottom 80% of the population losing more and more of their share of the income generated in society, some losing as much as 30% compared to where they were even 30 years ago. Looking at one last chart, which is the growth in total U.S. GDP versus median household income, which you can look up on Wikipedia, it's even more depressing. You see this huge move in GDP over the last 30 to 40 years, and almost none of it going to normal households. Where is this money going to? All right, these are pretty ugly charts, but I don't think many people have seen these charts. And so whenever we talk about the wealth gap or inequality, people's reactions are mostly, yeah, there's a wealth gap, of course. Everyone knows the Pareto principle, the 80-20 rule, right? But I would ask you, look at these charts. Does this look like the 80-20 rule or something much more disturbing? My gut reaction is to blame something like globalism, but that's not the whole picture here. Normal people just aren't benefiting from the economic advances we've been making in the last couple of decades, with the exception of maybe cheaper goods. But without jobs that pay enough to buy cheaper goods, what's the point? What about people who can't even get jobs at all because of the massive waves of outsourcing and automation that are taking away thousands and millions of jobs, even as we speak? I would like to read now from two places in Andrew Yang's book, The War on Normal People, about the tsunami of joblessness that is coming, and for many people is already here, just to serve as a good frame for the rest of this discussion. The Obama White House published a report in December 2016 that predicted 83% of jobs where people make less than $20 per hour will be subject to automation or replacement. 83%. The reason that even well-meaning commentators suggest increasingly unlikely and tenuous ways for people to make a living is that they are trapped in the conventional thinking that people must trade their time, energy, and labor for money as the only way to survive. You stretch for answers because, in reality, there are none. The subsistence and scarcity model is grinding more and more people up. Preserving it is the thing we must give up first. The Federal Reserve categorizes about 62 million jobs as routine, or approximately 44% of total jobs. The Fed calls the disappearance of these middle-skill jobs job polarization, meaning we will be left with low-end service jobs and high-end cognitive jobs and very little in between. This trend goes hand in hand with the disappearance of the American middle class and the startlingly high income inequality in the United States?
Well, I think that's only natural.
What do you mean?
Well, we are in a capitalist market economy, which rewards whoever is more efficient, more effective in producing goods and services, and rewards them. We all know that this provides incentives for people to become more productive, more efficient, right? That's how the capitalist market works. So actually, naturally, there are people who will earn more by producing more and be more efficient. And once they have more, they are more resourceful, they can invest more, they can gain better access to education, to technology, and to other things. And this creates a kind of a feedback loop. This is actually the principle behind our Pareto, 80-20% rule, or so-called Pareto principles. It's only natural that things aren't distributed equally. You can look at this in many examples in nature. So it's only a matter of time before something like this happens. And we all know that technology is advancing at accelerating rates with AI, robotics, replacing even more human labor, right? So in a market economy, I think that's only the natural thing that's going to happen.
I mean, should we just accept this as a fact, as is?
Well, no. My answer actually is a no. The reason is very simple. While capitalistic market economy has its merits and values to create wealth, to create service, goods, and make the society more efficient, it's only part of the human value and what humans are capable of doing, which is called the market or economic value. But there is another side of human behaviors and activities called social value that should be also, looked at and be valued. So what is social value? A great example is mom's work, right? We all know how important being a mother is in caring of children, in caring of maybe the elders, caring for members of the family. But what do mothers get in terms of salary, right? If it's a full-time mother, well, the salary level of a full-time mom is completely dependent on the spouse income level.
Yeah.
Right? If you have a rich husband, your income is high. If you have a husband that doesn't make much money, you have a low income. And this is regardless of how much social value you're actually producing for the society.
That's right. So what do you think are some solutions to this, if there are any?
Okay, so this is a question, I have been pondering for quite some time. I actually went to United States, the States, for my secondary school education. And the first thing that kind of really struck me was you see homeless people, like people in extreme poverty, like in all major U.S. cities. And that was really a shock to me, actually, because back in Taiwan at the time, there weren't that many homeless people on the street. Mm-hmm. Well, sadly, a few years later, when I got back to Taiwan, I also started to see these homeless people on the streets in Taiwan. So I do feel that, this is a global problem that we are all facing. The solution of this, years later, I came across this idea called basic income, or something called universal basic income. It's probably the most elegant solution that can deal with this problem. The idea is that human beings, as a right, actually should have access to basic living support to support their livelihood. So the idea goes that maybe everyone in society should receive basic protection for, their monthly living. And it could be provided by the government or maybe some other means. And this is called the basic income system.
It's pretty interesting. All right. Thanks, Xuanyuan. If you like this content, please don't forget to like and subscribe. And we'll work hard to give you more awesome content in the future. I'm Robert.
I'm Shen Yuan.
Thank you for listening to the Joint Commonwealth podcast. Let's create a brighter tomorrow together.